Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a weird paradox of our modern lives. We've basically engineered comfort into every single corner of our world, but are we any happier? It often feels like we're more stressed and unsatisfied than ever. Well, it turns out the secret to a more fulfilling life might not be about getting more comfort, but actually less. Let's get into how leaning into difficulty can actually make us happier.
You've been there, right? We all have. You're crammed onto a flight, and every little thing feels like a total personal attack. The seat's too small, the coffee is, let's just say it's questionable, the Wi-Fi is crawling. These are those classic first-world problems that can just wreck our whole day. But what if I told you that the exact same flight could feel like the most amazing, luxurious experience of your entire life? So at the very heart of this is a really simple mismatch. It's like we're running ancient software on brand new hardware. Our brains, our bodies, they evolved for a world of nonstop physical challenges, of scarcity, of discomfort. That instinct to find the easiest, most comfortable path, that was an absolutely brilliant survival strategy back then. But today, in our world of push-button ease, that exact same instinct is totally backfiring. It's creating what the writer Michael Easter calls the comfort crisis.
Now, to really get his head around this, Easter didn't just, read a bunch of studies. He decided to run an experiment on himself. He packed up, left our world of engineered comfort way behind, and headed to one of the most brutal, inhospitable places on the entire planet, the Alaskan Arctic.
For 33 grueling days, he just plunged himself into the wilderness. And look, this wasn't some kind of adventure vacation. It was a straight-up survival mission in a place where literally everything is hard.
The cold was just relentless. I mean, think about it. Just getting a drink of water meant a dangerous trek to an icy stream. Staying warm meant the back-breaking work of finding and hauling firewood.
And on top of that, he was starving for most of the trip. He was in a constant battle with this massive calorie deficit that left him physically and mentally just completely wiped out.
And this wasn't just about physical hardship. This was about life-threatening danger. Get this, he had to carry a rifle with him just to go to the bathroom. Why? Because of the constant, very real threat of grizzly bears. So, after 33 days of all of that, he was finally on his way home. And this, right here, is where the story gets really, really interesting. He boards a totally normal commercial flight, the same kind of flight he used to complain about. But this time, his experience was completely different.
He has this just incredible aha moment. It wasn't just good, it was a miracle. It was like he was seeing the modern world for the very first time with brand new eyes. It's just wild how his perspective completely flipped. You know that cramped seat we all hate? To him, it felt unbelievably comfortable after a month without a real chair. That bad coffee? He said it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. And the crying baby? It wasn't an annoyance anymore. He just felt empathy. And the tiny airplane bathroom with hot running water? That was pure, mind-blowing luxury.
Okay, so this isn't just a good story. It's actually a perfect illustration of a really fascinating psychological principle. Easter's whole experience shows us how our brains are literally wired to go looking for problems even when they barely exist.
Researchers at Harvard call it prevalence-induced concept change. I know, it's a mouthful, but here's what it means in plain English. Our definition of a problem is totally relative. As our lives get better and we face fewer real threats, we don't just stop seeing threats. No, we just expand our definition of what a threat is. We start labeling tiny little inconveniences as major disasters.
So check out how researchers saw this in action. They had people look at a bunch of photos and pick out the threatening faces. But here's the trick. The researchers secretly started showing them fewer and fewer actually threatening faces. Did people find fewer problems? Nope. They just started calling perfectly neutral faces threatening. Their brains needed to hit that problem quota.
So what does all this mean? It means our brain is basically a problem-finding machine. If we don't give it real, meaningful challenges to chew on, it will just invent them out of the tiny annoyances of our comfortable lives. This right here, this is the science behind first-world problems. Okay, so if we're programmed this way, what in the world do we do about it? Well, one really powerful way is to intentionally and strategically inject a big dose of discomfort back into our lives.
And this brings us to this powerful idea called a misogi. It's basically a modern rite of passage. The idea is, once a year, you take on a challenge that is so significant, it just fundamentally pushes your boundaries and shows you what you're actually capable of.
Now here's the key. A real misogi isn't supposed to be a sure thing. The sweet spot is a challenge that you think you only have about a 50-50 shot at actually completing. If you're certain you can do it, it's not hard enough. That uncertainty, that's where the magic, the growth, really happens.
The rules are simple, but they're really profound. Rule number 1, you can't die. This is all about being tough, not being stupid. And rule number 2, you do it for you. The real power of a misogi comes from the internal shift it creates inside of you, not from the likes you might get for posting about it online. A misogi is an amazing annual reset, for sure. But what about the other 364 days of the year? Well, we can actually apply the same exact principle, just on a much smaller daily scale. It's about finding what Estella calls your 2% opportunities.
This idea comes from a study that found that when an escalator and a flight of stairs are right next to each other, only about 2% of people choose the stairs. 98% take the easy way out. The goal is to start training yourself to be part of that 2%, to intentionally choose the slightly harder path that gives you a long-term benefit. And these little opportunities, they're everywhere. Park in the farthest spot at the grocery store. Carry your groceries instead of pushing the cart. Go for a walk while you're on a phone call. And here's a big one for today. When you feel that flicker of boredom, resist. Resist that urge to grab your phone. Just sit with your own thoughts for a minute. These tiny acts of voluntary discomfort, they really add up.
When it comes down to it, a better, more satisfying life, it's not some destination you just arrive at. It's more like a rolling average of our daily actions. And by stacking up these small, intentional, and often challenging behaviors, we don't just become tougher. We become more grateful, more present, and you know what? Ultimately happier.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. It doesn't have to be a 33-day trip to the Arctic. It can be as simple as taking the stairs. What hard thing will you do today? Thanks for joining us for the